Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today in Death Card Tactics I'm going to be looking at the new and maybe improved Helbrute from the new codex, being now a core unit and those implications that it can have. So let's get started. So today, the Saturday the 6th of February, you can probably guess the situation with my codex. And unfortunately, the tracking service doesn't even seem to work, or I can't even see if they picked the thing up or where it's located. So I can't even see if it's stuck somewhere. But trying to focus on something positive. So now I'm doing the review of the Helbrute, the standard, let's say, Death Card Elite Choice Dreadnought that is not a Forge World model, that we don't have to pay command points to bring. So in this video I will be reviewing its base stats, its weapon options, and analysis of the weapons for ranged and melee and configuration. Then I will be looking at buffs and synergies, which it can have a lot of, being a core and bubonic Astartes unit. So what can improve its damage, for example, and other abilities. And finally, comparing the damage and the durability with other vehicle Death Card units. So far I've not really used the Helbrutes, only in some test games with my kids. And my daughter just blasted my Helbrute away with a Predator with a las cannon on the first turn, and after that I haven't been taking them. So will I finally have a reason to add them to my list? So let's take a look. So starting with the base stats and abilities of the Helbrute. The Helbrute can be taken as one model. The point cost start from the lowest 115 points, and depending on the upgrades it can cost on the weapon configuration, it can cost up to 145 points. The movement has unfortunately been reduced to 6 inches from previously 8 inches, so that's quite a considerable degradation here. But the weapon skill and ballistic skill are 3+, strength 6, toughness 7, 8 wounds, 5 attacks, 8 leadership, 3+ save, and one of the most important things is that it doesn't have any invul save. Regarding its abilities, it has, of course, the Contagions of Nurgle, and it has Monstrous Resilience, which is basically the exact rule as Disgusting Resilient, but it's called something else. So its Monstrous Resilience works exactly the same, reducing the incoming damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. And then one quite interesting special rule it has ability is the Frenzy rule, which means that if it has 7 or less wounds remaining, then it automatically would reroll wound rolls of 1 for all its weapons. So basically, it doesn't have any plague weapons, but basically it gets the similar mechanic as a plague weapon if it just can get a few wounds. So that it's nice actually to have him a bit wounded, because then he will be doing a better job on the battlefield. And then he has an explosion, or explodes on a 6 and gives 1 mortal wound within 3 inches. The keywords are quite important. It has core, of course, and vehicle and bubonic Astartes, and it can be part of the Plague Company, and of course the standard Chaos and Nurgle and Death Guard and Heretic Astartes. But the important things here are the core and the bubonic Astartes, which means that he can be buffed a lot by different abilities and auras and and a lot of the Death Guard characters. So as I said, the movement has been reduced, unfortunately, to 6 inches from previously 8 inches. These keywords are important. And it gets, because it's a bubonic Astartes vehicle, it gets the inexorable advance rule, so it can also shoot its heavy weapons in point blank range with no penalties. So it's better than our demon engines don't get. Our demon engines don't get this inexorable advance because they don't have the bubonic Astartes keyword. And as we said, Monstrous Resilience basically is the same as Disgusting Resilience, so I don't know why Games Workshop wanted to. Why not just call it Disgusting Resilience? The Frenzy rule is quite interesting. Just give it 1 wound and it will become better. And of course, the no invul save, as I said, is a problem for the durability, and it is basically very vulnerable to heavy heavy weapons with a high number of AP, then it's basically defenseless. It can save, for example, suffering some melta shots, -4 AP, then we can save, and then it's just praying for the damage roll to be low. Let's look at the weapon options. So the Helbrute has 2 arms. The weapon choices for 1 arm, it has 5 options. So the standard weapon is the multi-melta for +5 points. So this, if you have the multi-melta, it's already up to 120 points. And of course, it's the multi-melta with 2 shots. Strength 8, AP -4, damage D6, and damage D6 +2 at half range. It can it can replace the multi-melta with the twin heavy bolter for more cost. 6 shots, strength 5, AP -1, and damage 2. The Reaper autocannon is for no point cost and replace the multi-melta, but it's basically the same Reaper autocannon a Blight Lord Terminator can get for much less points, basically. So it's not a very super heavy weapon for a vehicle. So, but again, strength 7, AP -2, and damage only 1. The twin las cannon is quite expensive, so you pay 20 on top of the 115. 2 shots, longer range, strength 9, AP -3, and damage D6. And then we have the Helbrute plasma cannon, which is quite interesting. So 0 point cost, so you can take it for 115 basically. And it's a heavy D3 weapon with range 36 inches. And it has strength 8, AP -3, and damage straight 3, which can be quite good at killing, let's say, elite infantry. Again, thinking about, for example, eradicators or aggressors or some heavy threats, that it's good to have a straight damage 3 weapon. It additionally is a blast weapon, but it's basically supercharged from the get-go. So an unmodified hit roll of 1 will give 1 mortal wound to the Helbrute, which is basically not so bad if you think about it, because it could give itself a mortal wound quite early, and then it's already frenzied, even if the opponent doesn't kill it. And then it could replace the multi-melta with another Helbrute fist, so then it's just a melee weapon with strength 2 AP -3, and damage 3. Again, the fist is quite good, for example, to fight with 3 wound opponents, for example. If the model is equipped with 2 fists, it gets +1 attack. So it's not super extra it gets from having 2 fists compared to having 1. So basically 1 you get 5 attacks, and with 2 you get 6 attacks. So it's not a huge improvement. On the other arm, where we have the Helbrute fist as a standard, we have 4 options here. So we can replace the standard Helbrute fist with the Helbrute hammer. And the Helbrute hammer has the same strength. The AP is better, and the damage is D6 instead of 3, so it's more variable. But the problem for this weapon is that it has -1 to hit. So all in all, there is not a big benefit to ever replace the Helbrute fist with the Helbrute hammer, at least in my opinion. I mean, you will be suffering more from the -1 to hit than gaining a little bit, potentially a little bit higher damage here. So I think the Helbrute fist is a better weapon than the Helbrute hammer if you want to keep it in melee configuration, let's say. Then the Power Scourge is also another melee weapon. It's not so strong, strength +1, so basically it's a strength 7, not so bad. AP -2 and damage 2 weapon. And the rule for this is that the model can do +3 attacks with this weapon. So in the combination where you would take a Helbrute fist here and you add the Power Scourge here, you would have 5 attacks with the Helbrute fist and +3 attacks with the Power Scourge. So that's the best, let's say, melee configuration you could do for the Helbrute. If you want to make a more shooting Helbrute, you can replace the Helbrute fist with a missile launcher, and the missile launcher has a frag missile profile and a crack missile profile. And it's basically the same type of missile launcher than that the Mephitic Blightholder has. So the frag missile is strength 4, AP 0, damage 1, D6 attacks, blast weapon, and the crack missile is 1 missile with strength 8, AP -2, and damage D6. Additionally, you have the option to add heavy flamer to any Helbrute fists. For 10 extra points, you get a D6 flamer shot for 12-inch range. auto hit weapon, strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. So the first arm here has mostly shooty options. Here we have a lot of melee options, but there's possibility to build it like only melee or only shooty or a mixed situation. So looking at let's start analyzing the weapons for themselves. So let's look at the long range weapon options. So more than 24 inch. So here we are comparing in the one arm where we could choose between the multi-melta, the Reaper autocannon, the Helbrute plasma cannon, and the twin heavy bolter, and the twin las cannon. First of all, we can see, and here are a bunch of targets I normally simulate against, and here is the average damage done for the weapon per 100 points. So we can see first of all that the Reaper autocannon doesn't have a very good performance here. So basically, it's not worth it for the Helbrute. The one that is topping for most of the targets is this blue line, is the multi-melta with the two shots, d6 damage. So the multi-melta is quite good. And then we can see the Helbrute plasma cannon is also okay, and depending on the targets they can switch. We see the green line is the twin heavy bolter, and the twin heavy bolter is not so good against the high toughness targets, for example tanks or something like this, but it could be better like a damage 2 weapon, and with strength 5 and more attacks it's better against infantry, for example here intercessors or Tau warriors or guardsmen or something. So against here also some weaker toughness targets, the twin heavy bolter is a better choice. And we can see the dark blue line here, the twin las cannon is not as good as the multi-melta because it's costing 20 more points to take. So it's not really, so the multi-melta is basically better than the twin las cannon. The twin heavy bolter could be an option if you are going against anti-infantry, and the Helbrute plasma cannon could have its advantages, and taking some mortal wound, as I said, is not always, it's not very bad for the Helbrute. Then if we look at the long range option for the other hand, we have the missile launcher, and the missile launcher here I'm showing the two profiles, the crack missile and the frag missile, not taking into account the blast if we have a horde of cultists or something like this. But we see for most of the targets it's better to shoot the crack missile, but it's better to shoot the frag missile against here, for example, weaker targets, of course, or troops with only one wound. It's of course better to shoot multiple frag missiles than shoot one crack missile. And we see here the multi-melta from the other hand in comparison, that the missile launcher will be added on top of this if we have the combination, but let's say the missile launcher in itself does less damage than the multi-melta, but yeah, in an all shooting configuration those things will be added together. If we look at the options it has for melee, here I'm comparing the Helbrute Fist, the Helbrute Hammer, if we have two Helbrute Fists, and if we have the Power Scourge alone, or if we have the extra Power Scourge. So first of all, if we compare the Helbrute Fist and the Helbrute Hammer, as we also saw the -1 to hit for the Helbrute Hammer, the orange line is always almost always lower than the Helbrute Fist. It could be a little bit better here with 2+ armor save targets. But for most of the cases, it's just better to stay with the Helbrute Fist. And then you see here, if you have two Helbrute Fist, it gives you an addition to one more damage, one more attack, so you get a little bit more damage. But the best combination for melee only would be the Helbrute Fist, plus with the 3 extra attacks with the extra power scourge. So this would be then on top of the blue line here. So analyzing and discarding some of the weapons from themselves, let's talk about some loadout configurations considering different roles. So let's, if we think about longer range Helbrute, more tuned against anti-vehicle and elite targets and in shooting, let's say in long range, then of course multi-melta and missile could be an opportunity and possibility. Helbrute plasma and missile could also be one. And if we want a longer range, more anti-infantry unit, it could be a twin heavy bolter plus the missile. Of course, yeah, because here we are sacrificing the Helbrute fist and melee to add the missile to do more shooting damage. If we want to keep the Helbrute more optimized against to have both mixed, both in melee and shooting, and also maybe to do a bit more in shorter range, of course, then the multi-melta becomes more interesting. In shorter range, it has damage d6 plus 2, and we can start looking at adding flamers on the fist to do more in short range, keeping the fist here and the multi-melta, so we can do both some shooting damage, some melee damage, and something also with a flamer in short range or point blank here. And here it could also be interesting to check a twin fist with 2 flamers on the fists, but it's beginning to become quite expensive for 135 points here. And then a melee only configuration where we have the Helbrute fist and the power scourge on the other hand for 115 points. So in this table, I'm summarizing the base damage output per 100 points, the average across all the targets I'm simulating for all the configurations I mentioned in the previous page. So we can see here what is the damage they do at long range, at least 24 or longer, then short range 12 inches, point blank shooting, melee only, and then summing up the point blank and melee, for example, if the opponent charges, and then the next time we can do point blank shooting and melee, for example. So we can see from the long range options here the best option at the long range in these targets at least is the multi-melta and missile, but the plasma, the Helbrute plasma and the Helbrute twin heavy bolter are also very close. There is not much to keep them apart here, and the twin heavy bolter is basically better against infantry targets, while multi-melta is probably better against the vehicle targets. At short range, the multi-melta is doing more damage, so here it's increasing because it's doing damage d6 plus 2. Here we also see some of the flamers come into effect. For example, a Helbrute with 2 fists and 2 flamers, but not, let's say, it doesn't do the best damage here. Here the multi-melta and the flamer do something, but it's not as much as the points, for example, what we're giving away for the missile here. So at short range, the multi-melta and missile seem to be the most damaging choice, let's say. In point blank, the Helbrute is very potent because it doesn't have a -1 to hit with heavy weapons, and it's benefiting as well from -1 toughness on the opponent. So in here, it can do more damage, and again, the multi-melta and missile can do a lot in point blank. Here, of course, multi-melta and the flamer can do quite considerable damage here. And then if we look at melee only, then the Helbrute with the fist and the power scourge can do the most damage. If we compare the point blank together with melee damage, then we see the combination of multi-melta plus the fist with the flamer does the most damage per points. So those were the base damages. So let's look at what buffs and synergies we can have for the Helbrute. As mentioned in the beginning, the Helbrute has the core and bubonic Astartes keyword, so it can be significantly buffed by auras and abilities to increase the damage at least. However, it's difficult to increase its durability. It seems only that we can give it some healing with some combinations, but we cannot buff its basic durability, giving it more toughness or more, let's say, some better saving or something like this. But some of the auras it can benefit, of course, is the reroll 1s to hit aura from the HQ Lord characters, the Talisman +1 to hit, so Talisman can select Helbrute in the command phase for +1 to hit, the Talisman's Tollkeeper Relic aura with exploding 6s in shooting, this definitely can help. For example, the multi-meltas and whatever ranged option it has. And the Noxious Blightbringer aura can give it +1 to the movement, an advanced move, so he has a base, then it will be 7 inches. So maybe I have to apologize a little bit for the Noxious Blightbringer before from the previous video where I just said he's basically out. But he can buff. He doesn't only buff infantry and Virion. He can also he can increase the movement of all core units, including the Helbrute. There are some quite interesting stratagems for the Helbrute, and the Fire Fever stratagem for 1 command point gives it +1 to hit and +1 to wound in the shooting phase for the shooting options. So this is really good if you take a Helbrute. Remember to use this stratagem in the shooting phase. So basically, you could have, if you have the Talisman, it could give +1 to hit to one Helbrute, and then the other Helbrute you can use the Fire Fever. He would get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. And both could be, for example, both Helbrutes would be benefiting from the Tollkeeper relic in this phase. So yeah, here you can only target one single enemy unit, but you get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So for most of the times you would be hitting on 2 pluses and wounding on 2 pluses. If it's a target with a toughness less, for the multi-melta, if it's a target with a toughness less than 8. You can select the virulent rounds. Probably the bolt weapons are plague weapons, but it's not super good. It's only for the twin heavy bolter, I would assume, and it's not like a super helpful. Especially if the Helbrute is already frenzied, then you would having reroll once for all weapons. You could do something with Harsh Contaminator, but you would be doing it for 6 shots for the twin heavy bolter, and if you just take a base squad of Marines, you have more bolter fire to benefit from this stratagem. You can use Haze of Corruption to deal, so make sure that all the damage is allocated if you are in a melee situation with a horde or something like this, and you can use the Putrid Detonation for 1 command point if you want it to explode when it is destroyed. But yeah, Fire Fever is by far the most useful stratagem for the Helbrute. If you look at the contagions and relics and other things that can benefit the Helbrute, of course the Helbrute, like any other unit in our army, will be benefiting from enemy units being in the contagion range of some Death Guard units, giving the opponent -1 toughness. So then all the weapons can potentially do more damage and we get better wound rolls with the opponent suffering toughness. It can also benefit from the inexorable contagion, the Ferric Blight, giving if the enemy is within this contagion, then we will be getting more AP to our shots. It's not so helpful for the multi-melta and the crack missile, but it would be helping, for example, the twin heavy bolter. But we need the character with this Ferric Blight or another unit getting it from the stratagem to the flash outbreak to be able to tag the opponent, and then we will be benefiting by -1 AP to the shots if we take the Inexorable Plague Company. And then Leech Spore Casket, the relic in the Inexorable, when the character bearing this relic kills an enemy model in melee, you can select one Inexorable vehicle within 18 inch and it can regain 1 lost wound. So that's one of the ways you can a bit keep the durability up, healing a little bit the Helbrute, but I guess it will. I wouldn't take this just to buff, let's say, a Helbrute. So let's see what these buffs and synergies can do, because we can see they are mostly centered to the shooting. So I'm looking at the shooting potential and how it can be buffed. Basically, we can buff it a little bit in melee, but we cannot. For example, the Biologus aura needs plague weapons, and the melee plague weapons, and the Helbrute doesn't have melee plague weapons. So let's see what the effect of buffing the shooting damage, for example, in this case, the long range damage. So the base case, as we saw before, we were doing on average across all the targets to around 2.1, 2.2 damage, different configurations here. If the per 100 points, if the Helbrute is frenzied, basically if it just has lost 1 wound or a couple of wounds, then it rerolls 1 to wound. for all the weapons, so then we are increasing the damage by 17%, so that's of course helpful. If we take the Talisman +1 to hit and the Tollkeeper Relic, we are basically increasing the damage by 50%. So those two are good. You know, they are just stacking together. So this is quite good. If we use the Fire Fever stratagem, where we give them +1 to hit and +1 to wound, we see around 45 to 60% buff on the base case. And here the Twin Heavy Bolter is benefiting more because it has lower strength, so it's benefiting more from the +1 to wound compared to the Plasma or the Multi-Melta. And then if we do, let's say, the Perfect Storm, we have the Fire Fever stratagem, we have reroll ones, the Helbrute is frenzied, we have the Tollkeeper Relic nearby, the opponent is in -1 toughness, we have the Inexorable Contagion also giving us improved AP. Basically, we can buff the base case by 2.5, 3 times, depending on all this. But of course, you need a lot of things to stack up to be able to do this damage. But in this case, we will be doing 2-3 times more damage than the base case if you can use all these buffs. So yeah, a combination of all kinds of buffs, basically that would be 150 to 250% more from the base case. But of course, you need to add a lot to make this happen. The Talisman, the Lord, a Lord for the rerolls, some forward unit giving the contagions, you need the CP for the Fire Fever, and you need the Helbrute to be a little bit damaged. And you can almost do 2 Helbrutes buff this way. One you select by Taliban for +1 to hit, and the other gets the Fire Fever stratagem. They would both be benefiting from the Tollkeeper and the contagions on the opponent. So that's a possibility to do quite a lot of damage. So if we look at where the Helbrute stands in the Hall of Fame of damage comparison for death card units, and of course keep in mind this is work in progress, and stay tuned especially for one of the next videos where I will be looking more into a Contemptor Dreadnought with Volkite culverins. But if we look at the long range shooting, the winner here for base without base damage without buffs is the Plaguebearer Scroller with the Entropy and the Slugger so far, and the Helbrute Multi-Melta and Missile configuration was around 2.2 damage, so some not the, let's say, the best, but the max buffed goes to 5-6 wounds on average, so it's way above for example, the Plaguebearer Scroller. Of course, the Plaguebearer Scroller can also be buffed by some of the things. For example, -1 toughness. It can be buffed by a stratagem, but it cannot be buffed by reroll ones. It cannot be buffed by the Talisman, for example. So the Helbrute has a larger potential to be buffed. If we look at the short range shooting, again, Helbrute Multi-Melta and Missile, somewhere in the middle here in this table. 2.7 damage, more damage here because the Multi-Melta is doing d6 +2. Here the leader is the Foul Blight Spawn, and if we add the Pathogen Viscous Death, he's doing almost 4.5, 5 damage here. But again, the Helbrute can be boosted quite a lot, and also in short range it will be able to be a little bit higher even than these figures here. And then if we look in melee, the Helbrute melee oriented with Fist and Power Scourge, 415 points. Here we will be doing 5.3 damage on average across all the targets. So it's a bit between the Possessed and the Mower Furted Bloatrone, but not as high as Death Shroud and Cowspawn. And the melee damage, as I said, cannot be very significantly buffed because he cannot benefit from Biologus, for example, but he could do some rerolls. He can improve a little bit, but it's not, it's somewhere in the middle for base, and it can be buffed quite considerably, especially in shooting. So let's, now that we have the damage out of the way, let's look finally at the durability of the Helbrute. And basically now we're coming to the Achilles heel of the Helbrute. Its weak point is its durability against anti-vehicle weapons because it doesn't have any invul save, meaning it will be helpless against high AP attacks, and it only has 8 wounds. So here we can see the number of shots not point corrected that the Helbrute could take. So small arms fire, it can take considerable number of shots, of course, But when we come to the entropy cannon or Melta, here Melta at half range, but also Melta and last cannon, it can take less shots, yeah, a couple of shots, and then basically it's dead because it's helpless. It cannot, yeah, it cannot save. It doesn't have any invul save against these high AP attacks. The disgusting resilience it has, or monstrous resilience, helps a bit, but eradicators probably would eat them for breakfast. I think a 3-man squad of eradicators that the opponent can get for 135 points would on average take out a Helbrute per turn, so you will be losing 120 points for one of these squads, even if the eradicators don't have a reroll. If they also have rerolls, then definitely they will be taking Helbrutes out, and it's difficult, let's say, to do something a lot to improve it. You can put Miasma of Pestilence on one Helbrute, you can hide them, but then if you hide them also, they will be having a limit on what they can shoot on their turn. And I think also their rather poor durability is also hindering them to be really helpful as a melee or short range duty. Coming forward, they are not super fast, but coming forward they will be exposed to more fire, and these weapons, the anti-vehicle weapons, we take them down. So here is also, if we are comparing the durability per 100 points to other vehicles in the Death Guard army, here I'm only considering the anti-vehicle, the more high damage weapons. Here we have the Chaos Predator as a baseline of durability, and we can see the Helbrute is better than the Chaos Predator because it has the monstrous resilience, but it also has the toughness 7 and no invul saves. And here we can see that of all the vehicles, the Plague Burst Crawler is the most durable. And then we have the other demon engines that have the 5+ invul and disgusting resilience. The Contemptor also has 5+ invul and disgusting resilience. Here it's but just some more expensive weapon configuration. I will also be looking at the Volkites, so I think then it will be a bit better because the twin Volkite will be 150 points, but it's better. The Helbrute has better durability than a Defiler per point in this configuration with twin last cannon. And here I added also the Land Raider. The Land Raider has toughness 8, but it doesn't have any invul save, and it suffers from a very high point cost. But all in all, it's a bit suffering on the durability. And if your opponent wants to take them out, they can take them out with anti-vehicle weapons, and there's not super much you can do about it. So some summary and final thoughts for the Helbrute. The Helbrute can be configured in a variety of ways for different roles. You can select a shooting Helbrute with either the multi-melta, the heavy plasma, or the twin heavy bolter. Twin heavy bolter would be more anti-vehicle, anti-infantry, and the others more anti-vehicle or anti-elite target, let's say characters and monsters. And then you add the missile launcher to add more to the shooting style of this Helbrute. You can also do a mixed configuration or more short distance. Then you should take the multi-melta with the fist, maybe adding the flamer. If you intend to go forward, do some shooting in short range and point blank and melee, this configuration is quite interesting. The problem would be, does it survive all the way to come into to melee, being maybe a vehicle and a high target for the opponent? And melee configuration, the best one would be fist and the power scourge, but again, will it be able to survive and come and do its melee damage? So especially the shooting configuration, as we saw, can be buffed significantly, being core, and through Talisman and rerolls and Fire Fever Stratagem, etc., it can do really a lot of damage. With all these buffs, it can do more damage than other typical vehicle units in the Death Guard roster. It's better damage buffed than demon engines before. The demon engines typically have a higher baseline damage, but they cannot receive the same amount of buffs as the Helbrute can do. The melee damage cannot be buffed very significantly. It can get reroll to hit or +1 to hit, but the model is suffering from quite slow movement of 6 inches. It has similar damage output with Possessed, The possessed are faster. In this case, the possessed could also enter terrain and use that for cover, etc. And they have invul save, so the Helbrute is not as good as, for example, the possessed in the melee, and they're definitely not as good as Death Shroud Terminators that also have better durability. So the biggest issue with the Helbrute is its durability. The 7 toughness, no invul save, and 8 wounds make it specially vulnerable to anti-vehicle weaponry. A couple of multi-meltas are able to take it down, and it's very difficult to improve the durability of the unit. You can heal it, you can hide it, but then you're not getting the value of the shooting, for example, if you want to use it. So this summarizes the analysis. What are your thoughts on the Helbrute? What are you do you see some other uses or some other cases or some other ideas for using them, or what will you be using them in your lists? If you like this video, please press like and subscribe to the channel, where I will be posting much more analysis on death card units and death card tactics. If you have suggestions for a new video, I will be posting a poll where you can vote on what review or video you want to see next. I will add the link in the description. And if you want to support my work and the channel further, you can visit my homepage at patreon.com, and you can become a patron supporting my work, and also get access to a bit more analysis and a bit more extra data, and have more say on the next couple of videos. And also, of course, a big thanks to all my patrons for supporting me and the work I'm doing. So with these words, GeneralJannis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.